Tonight's story is about a woman named Rebecca Collins. For decades, she worked tirelessly, saving every dollar, sacrificing her youth, and chasing a dream that often felt out of reach. Finally, she made it. A $2 million villa by the ocean, a place meant to be her sanctuary, her long-awaited reward. But peace can be fragile. Just days after moving in, a single phone call shattered everything. On the other end was her sister, Melissa, a woman who had leaned on Rebecca's sacrifices for years. And this time, she wasn't asking for a favor. She was demanding the impossible. This is where Rebecca's story begins, with a dream fulfilled and a family bond about to be tested like never before. I thought I had finally made it. After years that blurred together into one long stretch of sacrifice, I stood inside the place I had dreamed about since my 20s. The villa wasn't just a house. It was the culmination of every choice I had made, every moment I had turned down pleasure in order to build something lasting. $2 million had bought me walls of glass that opened to the Pacific, marble counters that caught the sun like fire, and silence so thick I could almost breathe it in. For once, I wanted to believe the world had given me space to exist on my own terms. The quiet didn't last. My phone buzzed against the granite counter, and with that one vibration, my imagined peace began to fracture. It was my sister, Melissa. Her voice came sharp and unceremonious, no prelude of, "How are you?" or "Congratulations on your new home." Just blunt words, delivered as if she were dictating a shopping list. "We're on our way to you. There will be 15 of us. Prepare beds, towels, slippers, food. We'll be staying for 3 weeks. We'll be there in 40 minutes, so hurry up. 15 people, 3 weeks. My hands tightened around the phone. My villa, my sanctuary, was about to be treated as nothing more than a free resort for my sister and her entourage. I could almost hear the laughter of strangers echoing off my pristine walls, the clatter of their shoes on polished wood. In her tone, there had been no hint of hesitation, no courtesy, not even a pause to ask if I was available. It was not a request. It was a command. The old me would have panicked. I would have scrambled for clean sheets, worried about groceries, prayed my exhaustion wouldn't show. But something inside me shifted the moment she hung up. My chest should have been heaving with dread, but instead, a strange calm washed through me. My lips even curved into a small smile. Because for the first time in my life, I knew I wasn't going to play her game. Still, her words echoed. Prepare beds, towels, slippers, food. I repeated them under my breath as I set the phone down. The villa stretched out before me, a half-finished puzzle of boxes, furniture not yet assembled, paintings leaning against bare walls. My bed frame sat unbolted in the corner of the bedroom, a mattress on the floor where I had been sleeping since moving in a week ago. I wasn't even fully settled, and yet Melissa assumed she could summon an army of freeloaders to occupy my hard-earned dream. I drifted toward the window, letting the breeze push against me as if urging me to stay upright. Outside, the horizon seemed endless, the waves steady and indifferent to my turmoil. I had spent decades longing for this exact view. Double shifts as an engineer, weekends when my friends traveled without me, birthdays spent with nothing more than store-bought cake under fluorescent lights. All for this villa, for this silence, for this proof that I hadn't sacrificed in vain. But Melissa had always been like this. She had snapped her fingers since childhood, and somehow the world rearranged itself to meet her desires. When she wanted my clothes, she wore them and never returned them. When her rent came due, she called me. When her son's tuition was at risk, I emptied my savings again, telling myself that's what sisters do. And each time, I convinced myself it was temporary, that soon she would learn to stand on her own. But the truth was simpler. She never did. This demand wasn't surprising. It was only the scale that shocked me. It wasn't just one favor this time, or even a few $100s. It was my home. She wasn't just leaning on me. She was trying to take the very space I had built as my refuge. For a moment, the irony made me laugh out loud. My laughter bounced strangely against the marble, sounding more like a sob. I closed my eyes, whispering into the stillness. Not this time. The words felt fragile, but they held. I reached for a crystal wine glass I had unpacked earlier. Light spilled through it, scattering tiny rainbows across the counter. So delicate, yet resilient if you knew how to hold it. I thought of myself, fragile in her shadow for so long, but maybe more unbreakable than either of us realized. Melissa thought she could barge into my villa, just as she had barged into every corner of my life. But she didn't know me anymore. She didn't know the woman who had walked through decades of exhaustion just to stand in this house, this sanctuary, alone yet unafraid. And beneath my calm, a deeper memory stirred. The countless times she had called with desperation in her voice, the countless times I had given in. I felt those years press down on me now, years I had buried beneath layers of forced smiles and half-hearted reassurances. Her arrival in 40 minutes was more than a physical invasion. It was the return of every unhealed wound she had carved into me. I glanced at the clock. 37 minutes now. 37 minutes until the past came knocking on my door. My hands trembled as I placed the wine glass back down, but my voice stayed steady in my chest. This time, I whispered again, things will be different. Melissa's phone call had left more than an echo. It had torn open a vault of memories I had worked hard to seal. I leaned against the counter, staring out at the horizon as the tide pulled me back into years I would rather forget. The pattern was too clear now, clearer than ever. Melissa took, and I gave. That was the rhythm of our lives, and I had danced to it for far too long. I remembered the first time she called me for money. I was 23, fresh out of college, working an entry-level job that barely covered my rent and groceries. The phone rang late one night, Melissa's voice dripping with practiced desperation. "Becky, just a couple $100. I'll pay you back as soon as I get my paycheck. I promise." I could still hear the way she drew out the word promise, soft and innocent, the way a child might try to charm her way out of punishment. Of course, I gave her the money. I couldn't bear to hear her plead. I told myself it was what sisters were for. But she never paid me back. Weeks turned into months, then years, and the debt was never mentioned again. Instead, there were new emergencies. A broken down car, maxed out credit cards, overdue rent. Each time, her voice carried the same urgency, the same sugary guilt. Each time, I caved. By my late 20s, I had developed a kind of script for these calls. I would sigh, hesitate, and then agree, always telling myself just this once. But Melissa had taught me well. Just this once was her favorite lie, and I let it become mine too. The tuition call was the worst. I had been saving every spare dollar, living on cheap meals and thrift store furniture, determined to one day have a place of my own. My dream of an oceanfront villa seemed impossibly distant then, but it gave me strength to keep going. Melissa, on the other hand, had lived lavishly, designer handbags, spa trips, impulsive vacations. And then, when her daughter's tuition bill came due, she turned to me. "Becky, you've always been the responsible one. You have savings. Can't you help just this once?" I still remember how my chest clenched when she said that. Responsible. It was the compliment that felt like a curse. In her dictionary, responsible meant available to exploit. And once again, I gave in. Not because I thought she would repay me, but because I didn't want my niece to suffer for her mother's recklessness. I wrote the check, even as I silently crossed another year off the timeline of my own dream. And then came the wedding. Melissa wanted the kind of wedding that belonged on glossy magazine covers. Flowers imported from Europe, chandeliers dripping in crystal, a gown that cost more than my car. Of course, she didn't have the money. Over coffee, she clutched my hands dramatically. "Please, Becky. You're the only one I can count on. This day means everything to me." So I wrote another check. This one nearly drained me. I smiled through her vows, through the applause, through the champagne toasts, all while knowing I had signed away another part of my future. I told myself it was love. That family was worth every sacrifice. But deep down, I knew better. Melissa didn't value me. She valued what I could provide. The older I grew, the more suffocating it became. Family dinners where she mocked me in front of others, knowing I wouldn't fight back. Holidays where she arrived empty-handed, but left with my gifts and leftovers. Birthdays where she forgot mine, but expected extravagant presents on hers. And all the while, I played the quiet sister, the peacemaker, the responsible one. There's a cruel kind of culture that thrives in silence, especially in families. People like Melissa learn to weaponize guilt, to twist the words family comes first into shackles. In many households, saying no is treated like betrayal, while enabling bad behavior is praised as loyalty. I saw it in friends' families too. The eldest daughter who carried her siblings' debts, the son who became the spare wallet for cousins and uncles. It's a pattern society often romanticizes, selflessness at the expense of the self. But the truth is uglier. It's exploitation disguised as love. And I had lived under that disguise for decades. Every time I tried to set a boundary, Melissa painted me as selfish. Every time I thought about pushing back, she pulled out the memory of our parents. Mom always said family helps family. It was her trump card, the guilt-laced dagger that always cut me down. But standing in my villa now, I felt that card lose its power. My parents had taught us kindness, yes, but also respect. Respect for other people's work, for what belonged to them, for the dignity of boundaries. Melissa had chosen to forget those lessons. I hadn't. I walked to the mantelpiece where I had placed the only framed photo I'd unpacked. Our parents, smiling on the porch of our childhood home. Their eyes seemed to look right through me, asking the question I had avoided for years. Why do you let her treat you this way? My throat tightened as I whispered to them, "You'd be ashamed of her if you knew. And maybe you'd be proud of me for what I'm about to do." Melissa's call wasn't just another request. It was the culmination of decades. This time, she wasn't asking for money or favors. She was trying to claim the very heart of my life's work. And the irony, the bitter humor of it all, was that she believed I would still obey. She believed that after everything, I was still the girl who folded under her demands. But she was wrong. I set the photo back gently, my reflection flickering in the glass. I could feel something shifting in me, an awakening, a refusal that had been waiting quietly all these years. I wasn't going to scramble for towels or slippers. I wasn't going to stock the fridge for her freeloaders. This time, I would be ready. The rumble of engines broke the coastal stillness before I had even unpacked half a box. I moved to the window, heart pounding, and there they were, a caravan of cars crawling up my driveway like an invading army. Melissa's black SUV led the charge, sleek and commanding, with 4 more vehicles tailing it. Dust rose in a thick cloud behind them, swirling in the salt air like a storm announcing its arrival. My breath caught. 5 cars meant dozens of feet trampling my sanctuary. The laughter and shouting spilled out before the engines even died down. Doors slammed one after another, echoing off the stone walls of the villa. I tightened my grip on the counter, grounding myself against the cool granite. This was it. The invasion had begun. "Wow, this place is insane," a voice yelled from outside. "Pool party tonight." Another echoed. I swallowed hard, my sanctuary already reduced to background noise for their chaos. And then she appeared, Melissa. She stepped out of her SUV like she was walking onto a red carpet. Oversized sunglasses hid her eyes, her hair whipped dramatically in the breeze, and her arms spread wide as though she were presenting my home to her entourage. "Becky!" she called, her voice dripping with theatrical warmth. "Look at this paradise! You lucky, lucky girl." I didn't move. My oak front door stood firm between us, its frosted glass panes catching the light. For a fleeting moment, I imagined not opening it at all. If I stayed quiet, if I let them pound and yell, maybe they would leave. But I knew better. Melissa had never taken silence as an answer. The pounding started almost immediately. "Come on, sis. Open up. We drove 4 hours to get here." I opened the door only an inch, just enough to meet her smug smile. "Melissa," I said firmly, "I told you I'm not ready for guests." She didn't hesitate. Her hand pressed against the wood, shoving the door wider, her perfume rushing in with her. She brushed past me as if she owned the place, heels clicking against my marble floor. Behind her came the flood, strangers hauling suitcases, coolers, boxes of snacks and beer. Their voices rose like a storm, overlapping, crashing into each other until my villa felt like a marketplace. "Check out that pool!" someone shouted from the hallway. "This kitchen is massive!" Another voice rang out. A young woman slipped off her sandals, leaving wet footprints across my pristine floor tiles. "Stop," I said, my voice trembling with fury. "You can't just walk in like this." But they didn't stop. They didn't even pause. The entitlement was so practiced, so casual, that my protest barely registered. Melissa spun in the center of the foyer, arms wide as though she were showing off a prize she had won. "Isn't this perfect, everyone? Just like I told you." My sister always knew how to live large. The way she said "my sister" made my stomach twist, as if the title granted her automatic ownership of everything I had worked for. Her gaze lifted toward the staircase. "The master bedroom's upstairs, right? I'll take that one. Best view in the house." The word struck me like a slap. "No," I said sharply, stepping into her path. "That's my private space." Her sunglasses slid down her nose, revealing the icy glint in her eyes. "Becky, don't be selfish. We're family. Besides, you've got plenty of space." Behind her, more laughter, more footsteps. Someone cracked open a beer right in my living room, the metallic hiss slicing through me. My villa, the villa I had sacrificed decades for, was unraveling into their playground in less than 10 minutes. Melissa smirked, dismissive. "Really, Becky? After everything I've done for you?" That almost made me laugh. Everything she had done for me? The irony burned hotter than the anger rising in my chest. For years, I had carried her debts, bailed her out, written checks until my dream felt like a mirage. And now she had the gall to stand in my home, claim my room, and call me selfish? Her friends trailed behind her, dragging rolling suitcases into the master bedroom. "This light is amazing for selfies," one squealed. I planted myself in the doorway, blocking them. My voice shook but grew louder. "Nobody sleeps in here. This is my private space." Melissa turned slowly, pulling her sunglasses completely off. Her eyes were cold, calculating. "Becky, stop being dramatic. You've got 4 other bedrooms. This one suits me best. Besides," she waved toward the balcony, "I'll need the view for my yoga videos. My followers will love it." Her tone was so casual, so entitled, that it made my stomach twist. I stepped forward, planting myself between her and the balcony. "Get out," I said. Her friends laughed quietly, amused by the drama. Melissa smirked, tilting her head. "You don't get it, Becky. Family helps family. Isn't that what Mom always said?" That line hit like a knife. She always knew how to wield guilt like a weapon. She dragged our parents' memory into her entitlement, twisting their lessons into chains. I clenched my fists, my voice low but firm. "Not like this." The chatter behind us faltered for the first time. Even her friends looked uneasy, sensing a shift in the air. But Melissa only stepped closer, her perfume sharp, her smile poisonous. "What are you going to do, Becky? Throw us all out? You don't have the guts." I felt my hands tremble, not from fear, but from the rage of decades boiling over. "Yes," I said, louder now, my voice carrying across the room. "That's exactly what I'm going to do." Gasps rippled through the group. Melissa's eyes widened, then narrowed. "You wouldn't dare!" I straightened my shoulders, pulse hammering in my ears. "Watch me." For the first time in my life, I wasn't the quiet younger sister cleaning up her messes. I wasn't the responsible one, the peacemaker, the one who caved. I was the homeowner, the woman who had built her sanctuary through sweat and sacrifice. And Melissa was about to learn what it meant when I finally drew the line. The air in the villa grew heavier with every second. Melissa's entourage had spilled across my home like a tide, rearranging my furniture, opening my cupboards, fingering through my belongings. Someone laughed as they tugged one of my dresses from the closet. Another cracked open a beer, foam dripping onto my hardwood floor. Their chatter swelled, careless and invasive, as if I didn't exist. Melissa, meanwhile, stood in the center of it all, her smile sharpened into something triumphant. She had always been the conductor of this chaos, waving her hand like a baton while others fell in line. My pulse thundered, each beat telling me I couldn't let this continue. "Out," I said, my voice slicing through the din. No one listened. So I said it again, louder. "Out! All of you! Out of my house!" For a moment, the noise died. Melissa froze, her sunglasses now dangling from her hand. I saw it, just a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes, but she masked it quickly, tilting her chin. "Becky," she said, her tone dripping with condescension, "you're making a big mistake. We're family. You'll regret this." Her words were gasoline. They ignited years of suppressed anger, every swallowed insult, every check signed under the weight of guilt. Something in me snapped. I wasn't afraid anymore. I was furious. "Family doesn't invade," I shot back, my voice trembling but strong. "Family doesn't demand, and family sure as hell doesn't treat someone's home like a hotel." Melissa's smirk faltered. Her friends shifted uneasily. For the first time, the weight of my fury pressed against them. But Melissa, unwilling to lose face, leaned in close, her voice low enough for only me to hear. "What are you going to do, Becky? Call the cops on your own sister?" The challenge landed like a dare. And in that moment, I realized she still believed I wouldn't act. She thought I was bluffing, that I would back down as I always had. But she was wrong. I turned and strode down the hall, heart pounding, into my study. I shut the heavy oak door with a decisive click and locked it. My back pressed against the wood as their voices muffled into background noise. My hands shook, but not with fear. This was adrenaline, clarity. I stared at my phone on the desk. My thumb hovered over the screen. Could I really do it? Call the police on my own sister? The thought carried decades of guilt, of cultural expectation. Families handle things privately. Families don't air their shame to outsiders. But as I hesitated, a crash from the living room echoed through the walls, the sound of shattering glass followed by laughter. That was it. My sanctuary was under siege. I dialed 911. What's your emergency? My voice trembled, but I spoke with a strength I hadn't known before. There are people in my home who refuse to leave. About 15 of them. They force their way in. I need help. The operator's tone was steady, professional. Ma'am, are you in immediate physical danger? Not yet, I whispered, glancing at the door as shadows moved under the crack. But they won't leave. I told them multiple times. They're ignoring me. Can you confirm this is your residence? Yes, I said firmly. I purchased the property last month. My name is Rebecca Collins. I have the deed here. Officers are being dispatched to your location, she said. Stay in a secure room until they arrive. Estimated arrival time is 15 minutes. 15 minutes. I could survive that. But Melissa wasn't done. Knuckles rapped sharply on the study door. Becky, her voice sang, falsely sweet. Come on, don't be like this. We're family. Let's talk like adults. Another voice chimed in, mocking. She's calling the cops, isn't she? Total drama queen. I stayed silent, gripping the phone tighter. Melissa's tone shifted, sharp and venomous. If you do this, Becky, you'll regret it. You'll lose me. You'll lose all of us. And you'll be alone in this big, empty house. Her words pressed against the deepest wound I carried, the fear of loneliness. For years, I had clung to family, even when it hurt, terrified of being left behind. But instead of breaking me, her threat hardened me. I looked at the framed photo on my desk, our parents, smiling from years gone by. They had taught us to respect what belonged to others, to value honesty and kindness. Melissa had forgotten those lessons, but I hadn't. Better alone than exploited, I whispered to myself. Outside, voices rose in panic as word spread that police were on their way. Some of her friends argued, insisting they should leave. Others wanted to wait it out. Melissa hissed, trying to keep control. She won't go through with it. She never does. But this time, she was wrong. Minutes dragged like hours. My eyes flicked to the clock, each tick louder than the last. And then, sirens. Faint at first, then growing sharper, slicing through the ocean breeze. My heart leapt, relief flooding me, tempered with dread. This confrontation was far from over. A heavy pounding shook the front door. This knock wasn't Melissa's or her lackeys. It carried authority. Police, open up. Chaos erupted. Footsteps scrambled, voices overlapped. Panic filled the villa. I unlocked the study door and stepped into the hallway. My phone clutched tight in my hand like a lifeline. Melissa was already at the foyer, pasting on her sweetest smile as she pulled open the door. Officers, thank goodness you're here, she cooed, her voice syrupy with false innocence. My sister's having a bit of an episode. We were just trying to spend time together, and she... Ma'am. The officer cut her off, his voice firm, unimpressed. Two of them stepped inside, a tall man with graying temples and a younger woman with sharp, watchful eyes. Are you the homeowner who made the call? I stepped forward, knees trembling but voice steady. Yes, Rebecca Collins. This is my property. They entered without permission and refused to leave when I asked. The officer nodded. Do you have proof of ownership? I pulled the deed from the folder I had kept ready, my fingers no longer shaking. They were steady now. Solid. Melissa laughed lightly, waving it off. This is a family matter, officers. She's just overreacting. We drove hours to get here and she invited us. I never invited you, I snapped, my voice ringing louder than I expected. You demanded. You barged in. You destroyed my home. The younger officer scanned the room, her eyes lingering on the half-empty beer cans, the luggage strewn across my floor, the muddy footprints staining the marble. Her jaw tightened. The older officer turned back to me. Do you want these individuals removed from your property? I met his gaze. Yes, I said clearly, my voice unwavering. Every single one of them. The room erupted. Melissa's friends hissed and muttered, their voices colliding in a chorus of disbelief. Some cursed under their breath as they stuffed clothes back into their suitcases. Others shot me dagger-like stares, as if I were the villain in their story. Melissa herself stood rigid, her fists clenched at her sides, her trembling smile stretched thin like glass about to shatter. You'll regret this, she whispered as she dragged her suitcase toward the door. Her eyes locked on mine, filled with venom and disbelief. You think you've won, but this isn't over. I didn't flinch. For the first time in years, I felt taller than her, steadier, untouchable. My voice was calm, unyielding. This is my home, and you're not welcome here. The officers stood watch as the group trickled out, grumbling, muttering about ruined weekends and wasted gas. The sound of suitcases rolling over stone echoed down the driveway. Melissa lingered at the threshold, turning once more to hurl a glare that could have cut through steel. But when the door finally shut behind her, the silence that followed was deafening. No more laughter bouncing off the walls. No more clinking beer cans. No more careless footsteps smearing dirt across my floors. Just the steady hum of the air conditioner and the rhythm of waves outside. I leaned against the foyer wall, exhaling deeply, as if I had been holding my breath for decades and only now released it. My hands trembled, not with fear this time, but with release. The police had done their job. Melissa and her entourage were gone. I walked slowly through the villa, surveying the wreckage like an investigator at a crime scene. Beer bottles abandoned on the counter. Towels discarded on the floor. Fingerprints smudged across the glass balcony doors. In my bedroom, the bedspread was wrinkled from where Melissa had tossed her suitcase with arrogant finality. A pair of shoes I didn't recognize sat near the window. I picked them up and flung them outside, each thud on the stone patio a release of the anger still coiled in me. As I straightened the blankets, I caught sight of the horizon. The sun was dipping low, painting the Pacific in strokes of orange and pink. The sight pulled me still, my chest rising and falling with something between exhaustion and relief. They were gone. The house was mine again. But Melissa's voice lingered. You'll lose us. You'll be alone in this big empty house. The words twisted in my chest, pressing on old wounds. Loneliness had always been my shadow, the reason I tolerated so much from her. I had convinced myself that being used was better than being abandoned, that staying silent was safer than standing alone. But in that moment, with the villa bathed in golden light, I realized the truth. I would rather be alone than exploited. I poured myself a glass of wine, the crystal catching the sunset in fractured rainbows, and carried it out onto the balcony. The salty breeze brushed my skin, cool and cleansing. I sank into the chair, finally letting the weight slip from my shoulders. For years, I had been the sister who said yes, the one who sacrificed, the one who silenced herself in the name of peace. Today, I had said no, and I hadn't crumbled. My phone buzzed on the table beside me. Dozens of missed calls and unread texts from Melissa lit up the screen like a swarm of gnats. I didn't bother opening them. Instead, I turned the phone face down. Tonight wasn't about her. Tonight was about me. I raised my glass toward the horizon. The last rays of the sun seemed to toast with me. To peace, to freedom, to finally drawing the line. Melissa would rage. She would twist the story, paint me as selfish, maybe even try to turn the rest of the family against me. I knew that. But I also knew something far more important. I had proof. I had the law on my side. And most importantly, I had my voice, stronger now than it had ever been. This villa wasn't just a house. It was a symbol. A reminder that boundaries are not betrayals, that saying no is an act of survival, not selfishness. It was the embodiment of decades of sacrifice, and the declaration that no one, not even a sister, would ever strip that away from me again. As the last sliver of sun dipped beneath the horizon, the sky burned crimson, then softened into violet. And in that quiet, I felt something I hadn't in years. Hope. Rebecca's journey reminds us that setting boundaries is not selfish. It is an act of courage and self-respect. Sometimes, saying no is the only way to reclaim peace, dignity, and freedom. Thank you so much for watching this story. I wish you and your loved ones good health, happiness, and the strength to protect what truly matters. If you found this story meaningful, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next story. Take care and see you soon.